The queue at Registry Station 7 moved the way queues always move when the people in them have nowhere urgent to be. Which is to say, it did not move at all. I had been standing in it for 40 minutes. I would have stood in it for 40 more without complaint. Contractor clearance renewals run on a 3-cycle schedule, and the Voreth Compact's Transit Authority does not bend its schedule for anyone, least of all a human relay technician on his 4th posting to the outer ring. You learn early that the only way through the compact's bureaucracy is straight through the middle of it, one stamp at a time. The station was a processing annex. Low ceilings, pale lighting, rows of biometric alcoves along the far wall, a long desk where a single compact official worked through a stack of intake folios with the focused joylessness of someone who had been doing exactly this since the universe was young. The air smelled of processed atmosphere and something faintly mineral, the way all compact interiors do, as if the recyclers are filtering out everything interesting along with the carbon dioxide. I noticed the woman near the desk, because she was the only person in the room who was not waiting in line. She stood to one side, watching the queue with an attention that did not match her clothing. She was dressed plainly, a high-collared gray coat, no insignia, no decoration. But she held herself the way certain people hold themselves when they have spent a great many years deciding that the way they stand is their own business and no one else's. Copper-red skin, dark hair braided back from her face, gold-flecked eyes that moved across the room in a slow, methodical arc, pausing at each alcove in turn, then moving on. I did not think much about her. I moved up in the queue. My turn came. The alcove technician, a young Voreth male with the polite indifference of someone in his first posting, ran me through the standard intake without ceremony. Palm print, retinal trace, genomic sample drawn from a small pressure pad on the back of my wrist. The machine processed the first 2 in under 4 seconds each. The third one took longer. I heard the pause before I understood it. A short tone, a cycling hum, then silence where there should have been a confirmation chime. The technician looked at his screen. His expression did not change exactly, but something behind it did, a small stiffening, the way a person looks when they have read a sentence twice and it still says what they thought it said. He ran it again. Same pause, same silence. He said carefully that he needed to call his supervisor. I told him that was fine. I had time. I checked the seal on my carry case and waited. The supervisor arrived 2 minutes later, older, higher-grade insignia on her collar, the measured walk of someone accustomed to problems that were interesting rather than merely inconvenient. She looked at the screen. Then she looked at me. Then she looked at the screen again. She said something in Voreth that the translation chip in my ear rendered as the equivalent of after 300 years, which made very little sense in context, so I assumed I had misheard. I had not misheard. The woman in the gray coat was already crossing the room when the supervisor looked up to find her. There was no urgency in how she moved, just purpose, clean and direct. She came to the alcove entrance and stopped. She looked at the readout, a long moment. Then she looked at me. Up close, her eyes were remarkable. Not because of the color, the gold fleck pattern is common enough in Voreth-adjacent species, but because of what was in them. Something I could not immediately name. It was not surprise exactly. It was the expression of a person who had been told for a very long time that a particular thing was not going to happen, and who was now standing in front of evidence that it had. She said in accented but clear standard, "Do you know what your genome carries?" I told her I did not. I told her it was a standard compact contractor scan, and that I had passed them 8 times in the last 11 years without incident, and that I would appreciate knowing what was on the screen. She told me. The Voreth Compact was founded, she explained, by 2 bloodlines her own, the Orithson line which had endured and the Davin line which had not. The Davin line had been carried by her consort, the first compact's chief architect. 3 centuries ago, when the original relay station at the compact's core collapsed, a structural failure that killed nearly 400 people in the first hours. He had been in the station's lower level, conducting final inspections. His body was never recovered. The Davin genome had been listed as extinct for 293 years. She had built the genomic registry, this registry, the one woven into every transit biometric station across the compact's 37 outposts, because she had never been entirely certain. Bodies are not always found. People are not always where records say they were. The compact's founding charter required that the registry remain active as long as she held provisional governance, and provisional governance meant unmatched bloodline, which meant every contractor, traveler, soldier, and maintenance worker who passed through any compact station in 3 centuries had their genome checked against the Davin sequence. 293 years, tens of millions of scans, nothing. Until 40 minutes ago, when I had walked into the queue at Registry Station 7 with my carry case and my clearance renewal, and my complete ignorance of any of this. I said, because I did not know what else to say, "I'm a relay technician." She looked at me for a moment. Something moved across her face, not quite grief, not quite relief, not quite either of those things, and somehow both of them at once. She said, "I know." I thought about what she had just told me. I thought about my grandfather's stories of his grandfather, who had been a drifter and a wanderer and a man who never settled and never explained why. I thought about the translation chip's rendering of "after 300 years," which now made considerably more sense. I thought about the fact that I had nearly skipped this renewal cycle because the processing fee had gone up, and I had been weighing whether the outer ring posting was worth extending. I said, "What does this mean for you, for governance?" She was quiet for a moment, not evasive, considering. When she answered, her voice was measured and without theater. "It means the provisional period ends," she said. "The charter is satisfied. My governance is confirmed, not contested, for the first time in 3 centuries. She paused. "I was not looking for a king. I understand that whatever the genome carries, you are not him, and I am not asking you to be. I was looking for proof that something survived the collapse, that the Davin line did not end in the dark in the lower level of a station that no longer exists." She looked at the screen one more time. "The scanner gave me that." The alcove was very quiet. The queue behind me had stalled. The young technician was studying the ceiling. I looked at the readout. I did not understand most of what it said. I understood enough. I thought about the outer ring postings, the signal boosters that failed in cold cycles, the pressure seals that wore unevenly, the relay arrays that nobody had properly maintained in a decade, because nobody had been out there long enough to learn their particular faults. I thought about the fact that a compact without confirmed governance was a compact that could not authorize long-term maintenance contracts, which meant the outer ring stayed half-broken for another contested generation. I said, "Show me what needs fixing." She looked at me, not the readout, me. For a moment she did not speak. Then something shifted in her face, very small, very quiet. The grief in her eyes did not disappear, but it moved, made room for something else, something that had not been there a moment ago. "There is a great deal," she said. "I've got time," I said. "I just renewed my clearance." She held my gaze for another moment. Then she nodded, once, the way people nod when they have decided to believe something they did not expect to be true. The supervisor cleared her throat and said something about completing the intake paperwork. I told her that sounded fine. We stood in the alcove entrance, the queen of the Vorath compact and a relay technician from the outer ring, while the queue shuffled forward behind us, and the machine on the desk showed a result that had not appeared in 293 years, and the mineral-scented air of Registry Station 7 recycled steadily through its filters, removing everything it could not use and leaving everything that mattered.